Hi, welcome to this edition of Talk with TAS. I am your host, Dr. Teresa A. Smith. Today, I am really excited to have with me Dawn Westmoreland. Dawn is a retired Air Force veteran. She is a resiliency expert with over 32 years of experience. She's a speaker, she's a certified life coach, and an HR consultant. Dawn's whole focus is empowering organizations to build stronger, more resilient leaders and teams. She has been recognized by activist Erin Brockovich and trusted to speak to senators on workplace safety. Dunn is also the author of The Empowered Whistleblower, an sought after advocate for transformation through adversity. Dunn, welcome to my show today.
Dr. Taz, I'm so honored. You're always inspiring me and inspiring others with your show and your work and your mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Dunn. Dunn, I want to set the stage by giving folks a little bit of background knowledge. How did you get into resiliency work? Could you share that with us?
Well, if you'd asked me when I was a kid, would I be doing resiliency speaking, coaching, writing, content, I would be like, no way. I grew up very quiet, very shy, very introverted, and went through a lot of different traumas and such. But what really got me into resiliency was a couple mentors said, "Do you realize, Dawn, you have a trend of resiliency?" And I thought, huh, because I had been a government whistleblower, speaking up about racial discrimination in the veteran affairs. Um, at the time, this would be about 12 years ago, there were about 5 Black employees and about 500 white employees. And I'm like, okay, I know what's going on. And, fast forward, I mean, there's always a lot of ugliness that happens too, when you're a whistleblower. But that's what got me, the latest thing that got me into wanting to do resiliency. And I've been through a lot of traumas. I've had a psychiatrist tell me that, some of the things I've experienced would, set people over to either kill themselves or to harm themselves. And I could tell you a lot of my stories, but, it really doesn't matter what happened to me. It's really how we view it.
Yeah, I think that's so important, particularly when it comes to empowerment and resiliency, because either we can be empowered or be disempowered. Now, you were talking just a little bit about your personal experience. Can you share where you made a conscious choice that you were going to empower yourself versus sitting on the sidelines?
Yeah, probably the most recent, was I remember working in the revenue part of the veteran affairs, walking to the bathroom, needing to have a break, and 5 women followed me to the bathroom and cornering me. And when I say cornering, I don't mean like they were going to ambush me, Dr. Toss. They're like, Dawn, we know your background, your HR. Do you think all this nepotism, and if you're not, I know you're familiar with it, Dr. Toss, you're well educated, but nepotism is illegal hiring practices where you're a manager and hiring family and friends in the government. Can't do that, or the state, but it happens often. And so the girls said to me, "You have the background at HRs. What's going on? Is it right?" We were watching folks, with GEDs, and I'm not putting anybody down with a GED, get a $90,000 a year job, and they have no training, no experience. They're just family and friends. And here I'm looking around, these girls, some of them had MBAs, they had the years, they had the experience, they had the training, they had the education. And, I'm retired from the Air Force. I'll be retired 20 years next month in February. It's amazing. And I always learned that the right thing to do is speak up for others. I mean, I was trained how to be a leader, not a follower. So I did speak up. And when I spoke up, I knew ahead of time, Dr. Taz, that I was going to face horrific retaliation. And I certainly did. But I have no regrets because I have to be who I am. And I'm somebody who's going to speak up, stand up for other people, especially when they're being discriminated against or harmed or done wrong.
And Don, I appreciate your doing that. And I'm sure those ladies did also. But as you said, you knew that you would face some backlash as a result of doing that. And I want to applaud you for being willing to stand your ground and keep your moral compass close to you. I want to shift just a little bit, but not much. I've heard you describe adversity as a gift that helps to build the resiliency muscle. Now, folks may not really understand that because I make a statement, I've made statements, and sometimes I try to clean it up when I say that I've experienced a lot of trauma. I don't wish the trauma on anyone, nor even on myself. But if I hadn't experienced it, I wouldn't be the person that I'm still growing into. And so for me, that's like building my resiliency muscle, but I'm not sure if that's what you mean by that. So could you elaborate on how individuals can shift their perspective to view challenges as opportunities for growth?
Yeah, sure can, Dr. Taz. I think we're on the same page. I like to use this analogy. You know, when I got out of the Air Force, I wanted to earn a fun degree. So I earned a horticulture degree. And then I did landscaping, landscape design for a short time. And I like to talk about, staking trees. When people are landscaping, they will often want to stake a tree, a small tree they're putting in their yard. And in most cases, the tree doesn't need to be staked. When you stake it, it has hormones inside it, growth hormones called auxin. And the auxin has to be able to move throughout the tree. And it does that when adversity, weather, the wind, the rain, everything's beating this tree up and, is going every which way. But that auxin is spreading throughout the tree and it's making it actually stronger and a better caliber. Now it's like us. If everything was perfect, Dr. Taz, would we grow from it? No. So I talk about, the things that happen to us, good and bad, can all really empower us. And it is a mindset. And you know that.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I love that analogy. As you said, staking the tree, we're thinking we're helping the tree,
Yeah.
but we're actually hurting the tree.
You're hurting the tree because the oxen is staying right where it's at. It's not moving throughout. And then you have a weak tree, and then you wonder why the tree breaks or, you know, isn't healthy. It's all part of nature. And I think it's the same way with us too.
Oh, I agree, and I love that analogy. Now, I know you've done the workplace um, safety, and you've done a lot of advocating. I think I read somewhere that you were even speaking with Senator Bernie Sanders.
Mhm.
What were some of the key lessons that you learned from addressing workplace safety and respect? What were some of the key lessons that you learned?
Key lessons that I've learned about safety.
Workplace safety.
Uh-huh. Well, the thing is that every employee, and I'm an HR person, right? Every employee has to feel psychologically safe in the workplace. And there's many ways that we help him or her feel that way. If they don't feel safe in the workplace, then there's not going to be loyalty. There will not be retention. They're just going to give the bare minimum. I know this. I've been doing HR 32 years and I hear it all the time. So safety is really important, and we have to make sure that employees always physically feel safe too, because today it's a different world. We have active shooters, we have violence, we have people who think they have the right to have free speech about any subject, even hateful subjects that instigate fights and such. So we as leaders, you can't be a manager. You have to not only run your business, but you also organization. You also have to take very good care of the people. And that's something I learned way back in the Air Force by this little retired Air Force chief. He taught me so much. Take care of the people, take care of the mission.
And I like that because when you take care of the people and
Yeah.
take care of the mission, but in my mind, when you take care of the people will help you take care of the mission.
Yep.
And that is so important. Now, in your book, The Empowered Whistleblower, you tackle some tough workplace issues. What
Mhm.
advice would you give to folks who might be feeling stuck or silenced because of a toxic work environment?
Okay. I've worked with a lot of clients and I've even worked with employers. And sometimes people think, oh, that book was written for employees. Yes, it was. But my clients, my employers, the companies, I also give them the book. And I'm like, this will keep you out of a lot of trouble.
Yes.
Yes.
Um, so now, Don, as I think about all the work that you've done, and you just mentioned leaders, um, and I know that you're a resilient speaker, you're a leadership trainer. What are maybe the most common leadership pitfalls that you've encountered? And how do you guide leaders toward emotional intelligence? Because you just spoke about the importance of psychological safety. We know physical safety in the workplace is important, but psychological safety. And when I think about creating that psychologically safe space for an employee, emotional intelligence of the leader is going to be important. So, how do you? What are some of the most common leadership pitfalls, maybe that you've encountered as a result as it relates to leaders and how they are guiding and leading their employees?
Well, I was in the Air Force 20 years where authoritative leadership is probably very appropriate most times.
Mhm.
And what I see a lot of the employers out there, they run with their ego, but it's also fear. And they're afraid to show people, who they really are. And all of us have strengths and talents and gifts, but we also have weaknesses.
Yes.
So I would say the biggest thing is the ego trap and just hiding behind that position, that title. And that does not make you a leader, it makes you a manager. I'd say
Mhm.
that's probably the biggest pitfall. So many times people get out there and they get promoted just because it's their time to get promoted. But if they don't have the mentoring and the desire to lead, to authentically be a servant leadership, to be approachable, to get out there. I mean, I'll share with you, Dr. Taz. I mean, Chief Kelly, who's one of the highest enlisted Air Force members, one of the best mentors I ever had. He was first there at the work. He walked around. He knew that somebody, was going to have a baby, that somebody just had puppies. But yet you would walk over hot coals, this man, because he cared about everybody. He knew something about every single person, but he also expected and had high standards and expected it out of us. And I mean, I would have done anything for this man, because I just loved him. He cared about me.
Mhm.
He knew of the problems I had going on at the time. He knew my successes, and he was the last one to leave.
First to
He set such a good example.
First to arrive, knows something about everyone, and then the last person to leave.
Hmm.
You're right. Now, he was really setting an example of being a leader versus being a manager. Mm,
Hmm.
absolutely. Now, Don, you have been in the HR arena for over 32 years that you've
Yes.
been doing this work, and I know that you have worked with individuals and organizations. What what is your approach to resiliency building or conflict resolution? Because I know that there are folks who are going to be listening to this who are in need of services. What's
Mhm.
your approach to that?
Okay, if it's an employee, sometimes it can be simple as, offering coaching services. Because as you know, Dr. Taz, we all have personal power, and sometimes we just need a coach to come in and show us, to help us. And a coach doesn't come in and say, okay, Sam or Betty, do this, and now do this, and now do this. That's a consultant, and I do
Mhm,
consultant work. A
mhm,
coach is helping to bring out that person, with open-ended questions so that they might be more, resilient. Maybe they want to get promoted, they don't know how, maybe they're shy, maybe they're having conflict. And as far as conflict resolution, I've been trained as a mediator. And of course, I've worked employee labor relations and have a strong background in that. And, I hate the word disciplinarian, but I was the first sergeant in the Air Force where we had to deal with lots of conflict too. And so a lot of the conflict is usually people not getting along. And I've done mediation before with them. I've done coaching. I have also done, Dr. Taz, consulting with the employer when it was appropriate to fire that person because
mhm,
that she is not willing to change. Doesn't matter if they have a PhD. I wrote an article on this, and that they're very talented. They're making everybody miserable at work because they're arrogant and toxic, and keeping people from sleeping well at night because they know they have to deal with this person. And there's
Absolutely.
a right way to fire somebody too.
And that is important because if that's done the wrong way, then that jeopardizes that organization. So you have to be very careful with how the steps that you go through to release someone from their employment. So you've done a lot. I know you've done the coaching. I know you do mentoring. How do you, as a mentor, how do you pass these lessons that you've learned to the people that you work with?
Well, I work for myself, so I don't really work with anybody. But how do I pass on mentorship? Well, I'm going to be
The
working.
lessons, the lessons that you've learned over the
Oh, the
years.
lessons I've learned. The thing is that you've got to ask for help. And I'll be the first to admit I'm talking a lot about the Air Force, but maybe that's on my heart tonight. The thing is, you've got to ask. And as a female in the Air Force, I was in 85 to 2005. When I went in, it was only 11% women in the Air Force. When I got out, it had doubled. And so it was very much a man's world. I got used to it. I liked it. I thrived in it, grew up with 7 brothers and stepbrothers. But the thing is that you got to remember that you're not weak. And that is, Dr. Taz, I'm confessing. It took over 50 years to realize that it's okay to ask for help. You don't have to do everything on your own. I always did, and I've always been very good at it and successful. But you can also burn out and crash. And when that happens, oh boy, it's not good. It's not good at all.
And thank you, Don, for saying that because I think when we think some people think about resiliency, it's like you don't ask for help, that you don't need assistance. But like you said, that's the fastest way to burning out and crashing.
And I
So
have done that. It's not fun. It is. It can
yeah.
take a long time to get your health back.
Oh, absolutely. And a friend of mine that we sort of joke about we don't want bounce back 2.0. And I assured him we're not having bounce back 2.0 because my health is most important. And as
Yes.
you just said, it takes a long time to get it back. So being able to ask for help, that's a wonderful lesson that you are passing along to all of us. Now, Doug, I know that you, with your speaking engagements being free, because you got speaking engagement free through what time period?
Through June 30th, I'm gonna offer free speaking. Of course, I'll either do it virtual or in residence, and they can contact me, and I'm happy to tell them more about it. But my theme is, mostly around resiliency, but I can speak on HR matters, courage, resiliency. There's so many things I can speak on, even ethics. I love ethics.
And that's important.
Yes, love justice. Hmm.
Well, Don, I can hear the excitement for all of these topics as you've been sharing with us during this segment. If I were to ask you, how do you see your work evolving? What would be your response? Where do you see your work going, and how do you see yourself helping people, particularly in 2025?
I love that question, Dr. Taz. Well, the thing is, it's up to me to get out there. And I'm a full time caregiver for my mom, who's almost 84 years old. So, I'm all about family, also about caring for myself. I've learned that the hard way, as I've confessed.
Mhm.
What I would like to do is to be able to reach and impact more people positively through speaking. And then I have a syndicated radio talk show that you're a guest on, and
Mhm.
awesome to get out there to educate, to inspire other people. Because, as you said, and it's my big words, we can either be empowered or disempowered every day, and it's up to us to choose. And it's okay. It's okay if we have a bad day. Now, I'll even say this: it's okay to leave a bad, toxic job if you're in a bad, toxic job. I don't care if you're the employee or the employer. There's nothing weak about finding a better space that's where you're respected.
I agree, Don. You have left us with lots of nuggets. Um, Before I ask you how the audience can stay in touch with you and get your book, is there anything else that you would like to share before we tell them how they can get in touch with you? Because they may be interested in your services.
Yeah. And thank you for this opportunity, Dr. Taj. You're the best. We're in a time of great division. It doesn't matter which political side you're on. We have lots of climate changes. We have a new administration that's changing things, which every administration does, to be fair. And the thing is, I'd like to leave the listeners with this: fear is not our friend. Let's not put fear out into the collectiveness. There's always something that you can do to be empowered. You can get along with other people, even if they're different. As I often say, I work with people who pray to different entities than I do. I brought up, believing in God. They eat differently. They vote differently. Their culture's different, and that's okay. That's what makes it such a rich world. If we can just tolerate, even if we don't understand, and embrace tolerance of other people, because they have just as much right as we do.
I love that message. Dawn, fear is not our friend, and being able to embrace differences, cultures, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because we are all so different. And
Mm.
I think that I often like to say, even if we were raised by the same parents, we're still very different. And
We
if
are.
we can see it and hopefully accept it within our families, hopefully that will spread abroad and we'll be able to accept it throughout our society. So, Dawn, tell the audience how they can stay in touch with you or get in touch with you, and also where they can get your books.
Well, I have a workbook, How to Stand Up to Workplace Bullying and Discrimination. It's very popular. It's been endorsed by psychologists and lawyers and employers. It's on Amazon. And I also have the original story. It's about an hour and a half read, The Empowered Whistleblower, about my experience with the Veteran Affairs and what I got out of it, because it really did empower me. And so to get a hold of me, I think LinkedIn's my favorite place to be. So I'm under Dawn Marie Westmoreland, and that's reach out, with my HR background. When people respond to me, I respond back pretty darn quickly. It's just my habit.
Well, Dawn, and we appreciate your responding quickly because with the areas of your expertise, people do need a response quickly. So we
Yes,
do
they do.
appreciate that. Don, again, thank you so much for being a guest on Talk with Taz. I have enjoyed being able to share your expertise with the audience, and I hope that you'll come back another time.
Oh, what an honor. Thank you, Dr. Taz. Lovely, lovely person you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Don, also. And of course, to my audience, again, make sure you reach out and follow Dawn Marie Westmoreland on LinkedIn. Her books are on Amazon. And remember, before you go taking care of somebody else, make sure you take care of yourself first. Bye now.